morning. I'm Dr. Frances Yahia, and today I want to talk to you about how to use the Hercules levers and your astrology chart to show you the steps of a spiritual path, the 12 truths on a spiritual path, and how to become a spiritual adult. So if you haven't watched my video on the Hercules levers, I recommend you watch that. So Hercules was an illegitimate son of Zeus, and Hera didn't want him to be born. She actually tried tricking Alcime, his mother, into not having Hercules born. So what she did, Hera, being Zeus's wife, tricked the midwife and said, don't let Hercules be born, to be very distracting so that Alcime could miscarry. But the midwife said to herself, I want this child to be born. She distracted everybody in the room when a cat came into the room. And as a result, Hercules was born. So Hercules is our wounded self. We can see it as Chiron in the chart. We can see it as just being human and feeling lost and abandoned or kicked out of Olympus the way that he was. So we can identify that we represent Hercules. That's why the labors of Hercules are so imperative. So if you haven't seen that video, there's a short video on the 12 labors. So the first labor of Hercules, linked to the 12 truths to spiritual adulting and the 12 truths to a spiritual path, begin with Aries. So go on your chart and find the cusp. Everybody will have a cusp that corresponds to each of the labors. Now, some people will have something called intercepts where they don't have a cusp, and that is going to be a place where you kind of feel stuck or stagnant on your spiritual path, and you might get stuck in that area. So that's going to have to be a truth or Hercules labor that you're going to have to work through more than most people. So in this person's case, she has her Aries is an intercept. There is no Aries cusp. So right off the bat, being in terms of the truth of thought or the first labor of Hercules, it has to do with manning what are called the man-eating mares, and controlling the thoughts is going to be a struggle for this person because there's no outlet. Cusps are these little lines that look very light and faint and gray, and they tell a lot of information. So if it appears that you have an empty house, for instance, in this person's 8th house, it's not empty. There is a sign there by cusp and a decanat. So find Aries on your chart, and that's going to tell you where you begin the 12 truths and the 12 labors of Hercules. So for instance, the first labor is the man-eating mares, the truth of thoughts. So this person, like I said, is going to have trouble. If you go to the planet ruling thoughts, it's Mercury, it's in Pisces, and that already has to do with delusional or illusional thoughts. So here's the second labor, the cusp of Taurus. This is going to be when he rides the Cretan bull, and it has to do with desires. Because it's the cusp of the 12th house, the person is going to hide his or her desires from the rest of the world out of shame and embarrassment. And then we see in there Black Moon Lilith, which houses shame in Taurus. Again, the desires or the low-level consciousness of the body, the deadly sins are going to be something that this person houses and keeps sort of in the subconscious or in the shadow. Here you have the third labor. The third labor is the Garden of Hesperides, and it is linked to low-level consciousness. So the ascendant in her case is Gemini, and she's going to live out that third labor. So we could see that the spiritual path is guided with the 12 truths and the 12 labors where we start the chart in Aries. So even though the third house, for instance, is naturally ruled by Gemini, this person is actually going to live out the 5th labor, which is the Nemean lion, which is the point of individuation, beginning with acceptance of her low-level consciousness because it's ruled by Leo. So this would be the 5th labor, and this would be where her individuation starts in her personal chart. The fact that she has an intercept with Aries and no cusp that allows the thoughts to be processed indicates that, and you find the cohesiveness in the chart, that the third house and honoring the thought, the low-level consciousness thought, is exactly where her particular individuation process can be found. So you can look at the 12 Truths video, you can look at the Hercules video, and you can join the Patreon where there's more videos on the 12 Truths to a Spiritual Path as well if you want more in-depth and more activities. But you can basically find your entire spiritual path linked to each of the truths and each of the labors, starting with where you have Aries in the chart. Thank you.